I always like to preface anytime I talk with Ken Casey by mentioning a historical fact that Ken Casey and the Dropkick Murphys and myself were kicked out of the St. Patrick's Day parade. And I think that was what, 2000 around then? Was that?
Yeah, right around then, yeah.
Yeah, for
You
causing.
know, I always like to say any band can finish a parade. It takes a real band to get kicked out of a parade.
Absolutely, sir. I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, just to let people know real quick. I worked at WAAF. We had the Dropkick Murphys. They graciously agreed to play on a flatbed truck rolling through the parade, and that was at the time, obviously, of your. You always do a series of St. Patrick's Day shows in and around Boston, and it's become, and at that point, become a destination for Dropkicks fans, and they all came pouring out of the crowd once we turned the corner there onto Broadway. And they had to call out the riot police to escort the truck through halfway through the parade. And then we got to that part where you turn around and this gigantic Boston police officer came out and said, "Get the hell out of here." And might be one of the proudest moments of my life.
My favorite part was how we kept playing as the truck sped away and the kids were jogging beside the truck and the cops were riding beside us on the horses telling us to stop playing. That was pure chaos. I wish we had, man, it would have been so cool to have made a little documentary on that, but, hindsight's a great thing.
Right. Another great thing about that, I always thought was awesome, was the crowd of fans that came out and followed that truck. They were from, like, all over the world. There were, like, fans there. I met some guys from Cleveland who were sleeping in their car because they were going to every single show. I met people from the West Coast. There were some people there from Ireland. That was pretty amazing, too. But,
good times, good memories, good people. See, that's the international and national fans like that. The local fans like, "What's up, Ken?"
Yeah, right.
It's not as they don't scream at us like the Beatles,
Right. Well, let's talk about This Machine Still Kills Fascists. It's out right now. I guess this is sprouted from shipping up to Boston. It's a similar process. You got with Woody Guthrie's family, his daughter Nora, and her son, who was a fan at that time, and they gave you access to Woody Guthrie's lyrics, and that's how you guys came up with shipping up to Boston, and this kind of puts that process into album form, right? Or was it very different this time?
Well, no, that is right around, actually probably around the same time. 2000 was when I very first went in. I got invited down to the archives, and Woody has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of lyrics that he never put to music, and the family said, we think you're kind of kindred spirits of Woody, and we'd like to offer you they don't offer that to a lot of people, and we were excited to be given the opportunity to just going through these back then. Now it's all on computer. When I did it back then, you're going through by hand, holding the actual pieces of paper that he wrote these songs on in the 30s and 40s, and it was wild. And we stumbled upon shipping up to Boston. I don't know what he was smoking when he wrote that song, but I often say we had already had the music to that song, and there wasn't many lyrics to the song, and I think that typically, if I was writing lyrics to that song, I would have filled the space. Like, there's a lot of open space in that song, and it kind of builds, and you're waiting and waiting for the chorus, and I would have probably written lyrics over that because I would have been afraid to leave such space, and so I think like the fact that there wasn't very many lyrics kind of tied our hands to leave it a lot more instrumental in spots, and I think that's what kind of makes the chorus such a payoff when you get there because you've been waiting for it, and so kind of just a little bit of magic that happened there with that, and I took some out that we never recorded, and then I went back through some recently, and man, with the way the world is today, just we were on the cusp of a world war, and when a lot of these lyrics were written, and rise of fascism in the 30s, and the way things are in the world today, politically, and and war in Russia and Ukraine, and then obviously Woody's history of having to relocate from Oklahoma with the Dust Bowl storm. So in some ways, many parallels to a lot of his songs from that era that are parallels now with, people, almost having to be at a point where you might have to see migration within our country due to whether it's hurricanes or fires, and then of course another thing he was very passionate about was unions and organized labor, and here we are in a time where unions are being demonized by a lot of people on a certain political side, and you also have a whole new frontier of places where unions need to be fought for in the kind of gig economy, and places like Starbucks and places like Amazon. Which wouldn't have been typical things you'd think of when you think about the American labor movement. But you're talking about, for example, companies like Starbucks and Amazon that are so incredibly profitable. Why not give your employees a right to collectively bargain as a whole for a better working condition and better pay? So you really would think that a lot of these songs could have been written yesterday. So I think that was the ultimate motivating factor as to why we decided to finally do the album now.
Yeah, it's surprising, and to me personally, just a little bit sad that songs that were written, 60, 70 years ago are still relevant today. It's like we're dealing with the same issues that Woody was dealing with back then.
Yeah, I think that for most musicians or artists, you'd say the ultimate compliment would be that your music was still relevant that time later. But I think that in this instance, I would imagine Woody would prefer if it wasn't still relevant.
Yeah. You mentioned Woody being from Oklahoma, and you guys went back to Oklahoma. You went to Tulsa to record these songs, and I was reading, I think it was a Spin interview where you were saying you were feeling it was either a connection or something was going on, that you were feeling some kind of magic or something while you guys were recording there.
Yeah, so we went to Tulsa because obviously Woody was from Oklahoma, and the Woody Guthrie Center is there. It's a museum, fabulous museum that they've built for Woody with all his archives and history there, and they actually just opened a Bob Dylan one right next door. So if you're ever in Tulsa, I would highly recommend going and checking those two out. So we wanted to be kind of around the people that work for the Guthrie Foundation and be able to have a coffee in the morning and go over to the Guthrie Center and just get in the vibe, And then we went an hour outside of Tulsa to Woody's hometown of Okemah, and you're talking about, that middle America Main Street, half the shops are closed down, the storefronts are closed down, just really, man, I got this eerie vibe, like, I don't know, like I'd been there before. I was joking with his daughter, Nora, because she always pays me a very nice compliment of saying I have an uncanny sense of interpreting his lyrics, and I said, that coupled with the fact that I've got this feeling like I had been in this town before. I said, Nora, maybe I am your father, reincarnated, which I don't really think. But just, I honestly did have this, like, man, maybe it's just from, like, reading so much about him and knowing so much about his life and history that it just, hit me. Like, it was, I'm not really usually one that would be that type of guy. Like, I remember, like, when The Clash would go record in Jamaica, I'd be like, they're full of you can make a reggae-inspired record in London. You just want to go take a free trip.
Right.
But honestly, it really did. The whole experience of going to Oklahoma really had a big impact on the record.
And like someone like like Dave Grohl, he did the Sonic Highway special there about going to different places and different studios and getting that feeling. And I think John Mellencamp did an album like that. He went to the hotel room where Robert Johnson did his recordings. And so I think that's a pretty common thread, which I think is amazing. And you mentioned the Woody Guthrie Foundation and the museum being there. I was wondering if they gave you any conditions, or if Nora gave you any conditions, or if you had to run the finished song by them first before, like, to get approval before you released it?
No, we always did because, out of respect, but Nora, and that's one of the things that made this such a less intimidating thing. I think she really feels like we really represent a lot of the stuff that her father stood for, like, in our hearts, so seriously, and she understands how seriously we take the opportunity, that she just knew it was in safe hands with us. Like I said, we always would run everything by her, but she never once told us to change everything. I think she views her father as, like, he's thought of in a lot of ways as this artist and a great songwriter, but that he did have, like, a fiery, feisty, kind of, like, rebellious side, and maybe that's not covered enough, and that we represent that side of her father. And so, yeah, the family has been so great to us, and, we just feel so honored to have been kind of selected to have this opportunity.
I want to talk about the last song on the album, Dig a Hole, which actually has Woody Guthrie's vocals on part of it. Do you know when he recorded those?
I'm not as sure the exact date, but it was, they knew that, that he was such a, historical figure already early on in his career that they had him down to the Library of Congress to record. So it's a rare recording of just, him and his acoustic. And we basically, got a hold of that recording and, little way to backing band track down behind him. And then, myself and he traded off on the vocals. We made my vocal. We put me on an old-timey mic, so I'd sound like I was from that era. But it was. I think it was right around the onset of World War II.
Yeah, because he mentions Hitler in there, and But it's, again, he mentions Hitler and everything, but still, a lot of the lyrics are still unfortunately relevant today when it comes to 100%. That. Yeah. But to me, that's the one that really got, hearing his voice with you guys, that's the track that really hit hard. That one.
It makes, it just felt like the perfect way to end the record. It made the hair on the back of our neck stand up, because the very last thing we recorded for this album was, and we did this back home in Boston, is we had Woody's grandson, Cole, who never met Woody. Woody was passed away before he was born. And Woody and Cole Guthrie is the reason why he was the teenager at the time 20 years ago that was a Dropkick Murphys fan that told his mother about Dropkick Murphys. So he came up and played dobro guitar on the album, and he sang backup vocals on that song. So here we are, 5 or 6 of us gathered around a backup vocal mic, singing the chorus with Woody in there. And I'm looking out of the corner of my eye, and there's his grandson. And it was just like, oh man, it gave me chills, you know what I mean? Because, just the whole project kind of came full circle right there, That's like almost like being in some kind of like time machine or something. It really was. It was cool.
It's really, that song. And another one that really affected me was, and I got to say, Never Get Drunk No More. If you're not in tears by the end of that song, you're just a soulless robot. And who is Nikki Lane? Who's Nikki Lane? Because that voice, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way at all. She sounds like she's been through some stuff, and her voice is so, fragile yet tough. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, she was perfect for the songs. I mean, she is, in that all-country Americana world, she's a big deal. She has a, #1 record that just came out the week before ours in that world, and so it was really cool that she agreed to do that. And, it was interesting to stumble upon lyrics that Woody wrote for a duet. And, Never Get Drunk No More, obviously his song of, empty promises of an alcoholic that swears he'll never do it again. But I actually, as someone who's been, sober since I was 21, over 30 years, it's like, I take it and I sing it like, no, hell yeah, I am never getting drunk no more, right. So I kind of took a positive twist into my mind. It was kind of cool to sing that chorus, because it was like, well, maybe this lie doesn't have to be a lie,
Yeah.
And a very cool twist that not many people know about, especially yet, because the vinyl doesn't come out until early November, is on the vinyl, we added a bonus track where we flipped the script. So it's Nikki Lane singing the part of the drinker and me singing the part of the affected, spouse, significant other of the alcoholic. So we actually sing the opposite lines of what you hear on the digital track.
Yeah.
To show respect to all the the men who have had to suffer with a female that would suffered from the disease.
Would you say that was the OG Dirty Glass back in the day?
Very, very, very much so. The OG Dirty Glass, 100%.
Yeah. All right. Well, Ken Casey, thanks a lot for talking about This Machine Still Kills Fascists. It's an awesome album. I love how it's just very different from all the other Murphys albums. There's a lot of twang in it, which people aren't used to hearing from you guys, and the playing is awesome. So thanks a lot for taking the time.
But the twang's in the playing, not in the vocals. Because,
right. Yeah.
So that's one of the things I kind of always say. I wish more northern bands would make these country Americana influence records, because I love the music on them, but I can't stand some of the vocal twang. So if you like the music but you don't like the twang, well, you can hear a little all country Americana missing some R's,
That's right. Missing some R's and then putting R's where they're not supposed to be, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. One final question. You're starting your tour next week up in Concord, New Hampshire, and then you're going to be in Providence, and then you're going across the country. When are you guys bringing it back to Worcester?
We got to get this word out in Central Mass, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Worcester. Come on, man. This is the Renaissance city of Massachusetts now.
Although, I say though, I have a couple of a couple of Murphys. I got one from Worcester, James Lynch, who's a famous Worcester family, because I think he's got about 75 uncles. And then Matt Kelly is from Fitchburg, Leominster area, and I always say to both of them, I'm like, well, you Western Mass guys, and they're like, he thinks anything outside 128 is Western Mass.
I know. Come on, man. There's a whole lot more Massachusetts after us. So
I know.
But when you
know how it goes.
All right. Well, Ken Casey, thanks a lot. Dropkick Murphys' new album, This Machine Still Kills Fascists, out right now. They're getting ready to hit the road. Good luck on the tour, man. I appreciate it.
You got it, Mike.